Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is actually they can't see you waving, Allison.
Okay. Oops.
we're not sharing that camera. So
Okay. Oh, sorry, guys. I was waiting.
yeah, I knew you were. I knew it too. I was looking at the live chat, and I was like looking at the live chat, and I was like, if I switch to Riverside right now, she's gonna be waving at nobody. And sure enough, you were waving, even though we're not showing these cameras.
Yeah.
But because we're kind of in the midst of a transition period, guys. So real quick, this is maintaining frame. We're gonna be looking at Jimmy Carr. But
Crisis
I wanted,
Crisis
yes,
of masculinity. Yeah. Of course, there always is. There's always something wrong with men. We got to point it all out.
yeah. So before we get into that, yeah, I just wanted to tell you, sorry for the time changes and the subject changes, but Karen is under the weather, and in addition to that, we're in the midst of a transitioning period. We've been using Open Broadcaster software and Restream.io for a long time, and there are some new tools that Allison wants to play with. One of them is Riverside FM, but that's kind of what we're using right now for this call instead of Video Ninja.
So we'll see how it works, eh?
So we'll see how well it works. Yeah. I should probably start recording, by the way. So let's do that now. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to start the intro over again. See, this is how new I am. Okay.
Yeah, this is like, oh my goodness. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison. This is maintaining frame number 91, I think. We're gonna be looking at a video from a YouTube channel called The Diary of a CEO, where the host speaks with comedian Jimmy Carr, who's actually really, really funny and really, well, at least from what I've seen, pretty politically incorrect. And I think that he's discovered with his politically incorrect comedy that masculinity is in crisis. And you're probably wondering how those things are connected, but I could explain it if you wanted to. So
Yeah, I'm sure. Indeed, and we'll probably get to that once we get to the show. So yeah, I will do the things. If
yes,
you would like
please
to
do
send
the
us
things.
a message throughout at any point throughout the show, please do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That is the very best way to send us a message, and because you get the full benefit, we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of not sending that message through YouTube's comment enhancement, Hunger Games labyrinth, running of the bulls. Running of the comments. I'm trying to think of something suitably not likely to survive. But anyway, so you avoid having your comment scrutinized by YouTube, and we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And we are doing our monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. If you want to make sure that we continue to be able to do this, and thank you to everybody who's supported over the years, because you are the reason why we're still here. Being able to do this at the level that we are still doing it. I'm pretty sure both me and Brian would probably be still advocating for these issues, but certainly not 5 days a week. So because of your support, we're able to do it, and we would love to continue to be able to do it. So go to feedthebadger.com/support and help us out for the month. Throw a few shekels in the hat for the month. All right, back to you, Brian. Do you want to just get started?
Yeah, let's get started, but let's get stuck right into it. But I did get a super chat right at the top of the show from Iggy Thunders, who says, Jimmy Carr, great. Some boomer is going to belch cowboy speeches at me like he's ever seen a horse for $5. Thank you, Iggy Thunders. I don't think he's a boomer. I mean, he's probably at least a millennial. I think he's probably a millennial. Okay, so did somebody send this to you, Allison? We're going to start playing the clip. So apparently... Jimmy Carr, you guys probably know him. I've seen a couple of his clips of his stand-up online. Very funny stuff. It's intended to upset you, but I'm all about that. I'm the more offensive the better. I've been seeing more of this lately too in stand-up comedy, which is great because I think stand-up comedy was one of the first let's say cultural pillars. You can say, I was gonna say the pillars of culture. There's comedy, there's tragedy, there's drama, there's music. I think comedy was one of the first ones under attack, and I think it has been for a while. And you can see this because a lot of comedians, especially the male comedians, and especially male comedians that sort of specialize in like, like walking that line, like, because that's what comedy you have to do. You have to be, you're like operating in the fringes and you're saying the things that no one wants to say. And if you're really good at it, you're saying something that they think about and that they all have in common, and it's something human, and it makes us laugh because there is a bit of discomfort, but also, relief, because you're like, yes, everybody does think this. And I've been seeing more of this lately. I'm personally a big fan of Shane Gillis, who I've been seeing around. He got, I think he got fired from SNL, or he like lost a job there, and then they brought him on as a guest like recently. So it shows that like the comedy space is kind of coming around, I mean, you're still gonna have like your Hannah Gatsby's, but I think that and Jimmy Carr is one of these guys, very well, for me, he was pretty funny. So okay, so anyway, let's play the clip. This is 21, where he talks a little bit about Dr. Warren Farrell, which is kind of a neat name drop from such a pretty famous guy. So I'm gonna play it now. Let me know if you can hear this okay, Allison, because we're in Riverside. Okay.
It's tough to lunch with your parents as opposed to the job and the thing and the work and the I'm busy. And you only notice it when it goes to zero. So mum dies and you go, well, I'll never see her again. What wouldn't you give now for another meal, another time, another thing? So you go trying to find that balance in life. And I think parenting and being a father is about that, isn't it? It's about that. It's about trading the measurable for the immeasurable.
All right, I'm just pausing there for the banana just to play it safe. I don't know how the CEO is going to react.
To us.
Jimmy Carr has been, I think he was either on Chris Williamson or Trigonometry or both. But he's been kind of like, he's like, I've been watching his circle as he moves, closer to like this side of
closer to the
this like especially dense part of the minefield,
the whirlpool and between the rocks and the dragon. He slowly circles the black hole of the men's issues.
Yeah. Apparently people are saying Carr is Gen X, so that's cool. That's about right. I'm Gen X, but I'm not a boomer. I'm saying that's different. Okay. Anyway. We'll play some more. Here's where he talks about Warren Farrell, I believe.
Warren Farrell tells a great story. Do you know Warren Farrell? It's like the myth of male power. I think a lot of his writing's been used nefariously by people sort of that are a bit... Anyway, he's a very interesting guy, and he's very authentic.
Yeah, he's probably trying. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's okay. It's okay, Jimmy. It's okay. I get it. There is...
He's talking about us. We're the nefarious.
Yeah, or like just a general like men's rights activist. I get it. But it's fine. Like if you're gonna say that, eventually, all I will say is this: I'm trying to be chill here because I know that I can blow my top sometimes, and I'm working on that. Just keep seeking the truth, and we'll see you there. We'll meet you at the station when you're ready. That's all I'm saying. Okay, keep seeking the truth. If you don't seek the truth, then I won't see you, and that's too bad. But if I do, I'll consider you forgiven.
Authentic. And he told this story. I heard him tell this story. He said this guy came to me, and very successful man, head of a business that makes millions, really doing very well. And he said he was unhappy because he had worked all the way through his son's childhood, and he hadn't bonded with his son because he'd just been away at work. And he went to see Warren Farrell, and he's a psychiatrist and whatever. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm gonna give up my job for 5 years, and I'm gonna be at home with my kid. Fuck it. I'm not doing any of that. I'm gonna be with my kid.
I think we got a banana here.
Yeah, I'm just bananaing there.
Well, he did make an astounding amount of money, so there you go.
Who? Well, John Lennon or Warren Farrell?
Well, wait. Well, Warren Farrell is Warren Farrell's anecdote?
He's telling us. No. He's telling a story of Warren Farrell meeting John Lennon. He just hasn't given away the John Lennon part of that. Because Warren Farrell always says, I was at a thing, and this guy came up to me, and he says this whole spiel, and for whatever reason, Warren Farrell had no idea that that was John Lennon, and it's revealed at the end of his story that that was John Lennon. You know, so
Okay.
because like if you really want to convince people that you're like what you're talking about means something, you throw somebody like John Lennon in there, you know. It'd be like saying, well, you know, I was making sandwiches and I was like, man, you know, I think it'd be really great to put peanut butter and banana together. And then this guy came and he was like, hey man, what are you doing there with them sandwiches? You know, and then I decided, I shared it with him and he's like, oh, this is the best damn sandwich I ever had. And that was the story of how Elvis Presley learned to like peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I don't even know if that's what he likes, but I'm just saying it's like that, you know.
It's how you sell something. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It
so
is.
I apologize for the spoilers, folks.
Man. Nah, it's all right. I think we've heard the story a lot of times, but let's go.
For 5 years, just be in that moment. And he did it. And he was very happy that he did it. It was John Lennon.
Oh, God.
And no matter how important you think your job is, you're not John Lennon. You know.
I'm afraid. Okay, so Warren Farrell's saying you're not John Lennon?
No, this is Jimmy Carr's he's just adding that.
He's
Essentially, Warren Farrell is essentially saying that
he's hijacking Warren Farrell's anecdote. Why don't they bring Warren Farrell onto this channel? Which apparently
I bet this guy doesn't know who Warren Farrell is. I wouldn't be surprised because, or you know, the guy who hosts the channel. I'm sure Jimmy Carr knows. Right. He's probably seen that video because Warren Farrell has made the rounds. Like he's been on. You know, he was on Larry Elder, I think, or they spoke to each other. Larry Elder was kind of a big, you know, AM radio guy. But he always tells that story. I think, I don't know. I think Jimmy Carr is trying to like say that, you know, I don't know, for whatever reason, like John Lennon is an example of a man who still wanted to make time for his children despite being John Lennon, I guess. But I mean, the reality is that most men that have kids want to be involved with their kids, and being really famous doesn't really change that, you know.
Oh, it does, but what it changes is his ability to do it. Like he's like,
yeah,
oh, your job isn't as important as John Lennon's job,
right?
But John Lennon has the ability because he has a lot of money to take 5 years off. Most men don't have that ability. And the other thing is that the presumption at the core that I'm starting to feel is that, oh, you're telling men, oh, you need to value your relationship with your children more. I think what really needs to happen is women need to value their children's relationships with their fathers more than the additional money that men can make by sacrificing that relationship. And I don't see that happening. Like, I can tell you an anecdote. I was reading an article from a newspaper in my town, or in my hometown, Calgary. So it was just like a local paper talking about fathers on Father's Day. And there was one father in that paper who was essentially an equal parent. So he had equal amount of parenting time. And he said it took him till he was in his late 30s to find a woman to agree to that, because it was an absolute non-negotiable for him. He was not going to sacrifice his parenting time to make more money. So he had to find a woman who would agree to that, who would agree that his parenting time with his child was equally important to hers. And it took him probably an extra decade to find a woman like that, because they were rare, and they are rare. It is rare to find a woman who will prioritize her husband's time with his children over the money he makes. So don't give me this crap like, oh, men need to value their relationship with their children. Women need to value the father of their child's relationship with that child. And the government needs to value that as well, and not make it something that can be removed on the behest of the woman. Like, it's like, I think men value their time with their children fine. It's everybody else who doesn't. Anyway, that's what I have to say to that, because it feels like I get the feeling like this is This is another condom. They're doing the easy thing, which is just blame men again, right? That's the easy.
Yeah, it is easy. It's very easy.
It's the trivially easy thing, is just to say, well, men are to blame. Because as we all know, the ones who control society are the ones who are always blamed for it. That's actually not true. Often the people who are on top never get blamed. Well, yeah, but no, wait, they do too. Okay, I'm in the weeds, so I'm gonna just cut this off. Let's keep going.
All right. This next section is on men's mental health. I don't know. I'm struggling to talk.
Change that.
It does feel like there's a bit of a crisis going on within young men at the moment, and I think your new show on Netflix shines a light on many of the difficulties that young men are facing. I was really excited to talk to you about this particular topic because I've been trying to arrive at a position myself on why so many young men appear to be lost and suicidality has increased, and there's, these new masculine influences or masculine influencers that are really rounding up this cohort of young men who...
I'm just pausing for the banana. I will say that, it's interesting. Okay, so I do think that there's nothing unfair about calling young men today, like stating that young men today are in a bad way and that there are problems. But what I do think is interesting about this is that there is no reaction for decades and even generations until we get these masculine influencers, and all of a sudden now we really have to act because these young men might actually listen to that. And they're still not addressing the why, like where this comes from. Instead of like saying, pull on the alarm, here come the male influencers, they're gonna turn these young impressionable men into dangerous individuals that are essentially dangerous to women, because that's really what we're reacting to. Instead of saying, well, why are these guys in this state? Why are things so bad for them? What could have caused this? I mean, like, you literally brought up Dr. Warren Farrell, who wrote a book called The Boy Crisis about all of the problems that fatherlessness causes and why that is. Go ahead, Allison.
Well, he brought up how people are using what Warren Farrell talks about for nefarious ends. What are those nefarious ends? We should deal with this. Like we should help boys and men with these problems that they have. Are those the nefarious ends? Because it's starting to feel like it. It feels like if you actually say, hey, here are problems we should address, those are the nefarious ends. Whereas exactly what you're saying. It doesn't matter. We'll just ignore it. It's not our problem field. And we just ignore it until suddenly all of these influencers start to rise up and have significant influence on these young men who have been literally discarded by this society. Like the society, the future is female. They don't care. They don't care about these young men. They don't care about their struggles in school. They don't care about their struggles in mental health. Not until somebody comes around and says, hey, you got some kind of worth as a man. And then they start to gravitate to that because they've never heard that message in their life. They've only ever been blamed. And now you got these people or these men who have a huge following because of that. And then suddenly, like you said, it becomes a problem. But it's not a problem when boys are facing it. It only becomes a problem when somebody who you don't control, or you think you don't control, because I actually think that it probably still is an element of controlled opposition. But, somebody else is now having an influence on these boys. And you don't like that fact. And it doesn't, literally, you don't care about the boys. You only care about Andrew Tate.
Yeah. Or whoever the male influencer is.
Whatever person will be once Andrew Tate gets thrown under the bus.
I mean, this is the thing that we've been seeing over and over and over, which is that, we've been talking about these things for 10 years. Warren Farrell's been talking about these things for what? Maybe 30 years? 40 years, yeah. And yet no one has no one's really listened or taken to what he has been saying for all of these decades to heart until some guys like the Andrew Tates and the Fresh and Fits of the world start saying, or even Pearl, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw her in with the same, in the same lot, and they would say, uh-oh, well, these people are clearly bad. So, we personally don't want to discuss these issues because we haven't platformed anyone. We haven't taken this seriously at all. But we certainly don't want them talking about this either. So instead, we're going to shame the people who do talk about it that we've chosen to notice. And we're going to continue to ignore the people who are talking about it that might be productive and might have something good to say, while also pretending like we care by discussing it in this kind of like, I don't know, like fretting way, like, oh man, what's wrong with the boys? I just want to talk about what's wrong with them. I don't want to address it, because addressing it means looking at the whole picture and potentially criticizing a group of people that we're not allowed to.
Yeah, if we talk about, we want to talk about the boys as a problem, not as having a problem. And we want to continue to talk about the boys as a problem rather than having a problem. And we're going to be so baffled why boys get drawn to people who actually talk about them having problems rather than being a problem. Oh my gosh, why are they doing that? And yeah, you're right. They choose these people to throw into the limelight because they can discredit them. Like it's easier to discredit. I think, or not discredit them, but just prove like the more negative aspects of what they're doing. Like how much time, and as much as I appreciate Pearl for giving a platform for actual men's issues advocates, like Paul and Karen, how much time is she going to spend on just insulting women? And yeah, I get it. Like the thing is that women really need to have somebody who's willing to call them to task. But at the same time, that's a lot of what she does, and a lot less of, addressing the issues of, what men face. And of course, it's a drama thing too, right? Because I remember when this would just be like, I don't know, a Hollywood wag would do the things that Pearl does, insulting women. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, sure.
Paris Hilton, no, it was not Paris Hilton. Like the, I don't even know the name. I'm not even going to attempt it. But he used to be like this gay guy who would just be so, weaned on a lemon bitchy about women. And, this was just
Rip
drama.
Taylor.
This was just drama. It was just drama. It was just entertainment. And now it's so marginalized. You can't do that because it's all misogyny in the mainstream. Pearl's taking up the slack. But how actually productive is that? Yes, women get old. Yes, there are ugly women. Yes, women are trying to go above their actual league. But can we actually talk about ethics and morality and holding women to those kinds of standards? Holding them to the standard of caring about men, caring about half the human race that even in its self-interest, caring about the half that's actually producing the society that's creating their comforts and liberties. Like, can we not talk about those things? Those are the things we need to talk about. Because the thing is that, there are going to be ugly women, and there will always be ugly women. There will always be old women. There will always be, entitled women. But what needs to happen is that women need to take responsibility for society. And I know people are like, take a shot. Allison said responsibility. Okay. But anyway, let's, so I mean, even the people they choose to present are unhelpful.
Well, yeah, but that's why they choose them, partly because I think it's easy to dismiss them. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that people like, I don't want to cast aspersion on Jimmy Carr. I think he's like he's on his way. He's on a journey. He's figuring this stuff out. He just, before this, he was just a comedian. He just wanted to tell jokes. And then like he got into all this hot water and he was like, what the hell is going on? And I think like many people that are in that space, why I mentioned in the beginning, like people in stand-up comedy, they're all being bombarded by all this stuff. And what they don't realize it is essentially a kind of like a feminine assault on them based on, empathy supposedly and sensibilities and these kinds of things. And they don't get it because some of the people are coming after him are men, so it doesn't really they don't compute that. I think Jimmy Carr is figuring this out, but he is talking about boys, and I think that, and I'm seeing this more and more, right? So I just hope that, like I said before, if he stays on the path, it's fine. Now, when it comes to people like Pearl, I think that, I don't think that Pearl is disingenuous. I think that if she was only out there, no, I know, but people in the chat will say that. I think that if you wanted to make money, and if that was all you wanted to do, then you would just do feminism, because that's like a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Let's be real. But I do think this. I think that Pearl she got her start based on watching Kevin Samuels, who passed away a couple of years back. And Kevin Samuels was never a men's rights activist. This is very important, okay? He was more of a PUA type guy. He would talk about female nature, and a lot of what got him attention was the fact that he would I wouldn't say criticize, but he would essentially meet women when they were aggressive and entitled and narcissistic. He would call them out on it because he felt like he was a black man. He was looking out for essentially black people getting together and forming families, and he felt that black women needed to be taken down a peg. Black men needed to come up in their own way. So he was just essentially talking to them. Now, I didn't watch a lot of his stuff, so don't quote me on this. I'm just going off of what I know. But Pearl was just carrying that forward. Okay. That doesn't make her an MRA. That doesn't mean she knows now she's been learning this stuff because she's had you on her show and she's had Karen on and she's talked to Paul. Not directly, but she's talked to Paul and Janice, and that's good. That means that she's working towards that. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm grateful that Pearl is doing what she's doing, despite the fact that I know that she's not as deep into it as we are. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've been doing it a lot longer. Plus, again, Pearl might be at least business savvy enough to know that if she's really if she's really let's see, how do I say it, abrasive and especially combative with people online, and she pisses off feminists and conservatives, which she tends to do, it's good for her platform. So there could just be a business thing there too. That's why she do the kind of stuff that she does. I don't think it's necessarily on its own good for boys. I don't think that's the priority, though. I think that I don't know what her priorities are, but I still think that she's getting talking points out there that people are responding to, and I think that's good. If it comes from somebody, I guess that's better than nothing. But you're gonna get people that are outside of that enough, like Jimmy Carr. They're gonna be yeah, there's kind of a yucky part of the internet that talks about this stuff. But that's probably because more to do with the noise around it, where people are just saying these people are bad people, than what's actually being said. Because I think if you look closely and you're able to set your emotions aside for a moment and not go in there ready to be offended and listen, I think that there is some value in there,
Okay, can I just I've been waiting to say this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I want you to be able to talk, and I want to shut my app. But we can thank these influencers for one huge thing. They are forcing the conversation.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
At some point, the mainstream, they're forcing, they're pushing this conversation into the mainstream. They're making it happen in a way that we never could. And the thing is that at some point, people are going to have to realize that there has to be some compromise in the favor of men and boys. They just can't keep doing what they're doing, seeing men and boys as the problem instead of having problems, right? So that's the thing that we seem to have a real issue with. When a man has a problem, we think he is a problem.
Yeah,
we can't
exactly.
See them as having problems. We see them as being problems. And it's a huge blind spot we have. But these influencers are pushing it. They're pushing this discussion. And maybe at some point, the mainstream will realize that, they can talk to people like us. People who understand the underlying elements of this. And maybe we can create something that is beneficial for the continuance of our society. This is like the white pill, like, or the hopium, that we can create something that makes things work. But you can't, like, to individuals, like, I guess Carr is not really the necessary, but the ones who want to continue to do what they're doing with no compromise, well, there's no future in that. If you want to continue to do what you're doing, viewing men as the problem instead of having problems, there's no future in that. And boys will continue to go towards people or men like Andrew Tate. As long as you do that, you are creating him. You are creating him by ignoring the problems that men and boys face and choosing to blame them for them.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, let's play some more of this.
Yep.
Who are we talking about? Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tates of the world.
Well, Andrew Tate's interesting, isn't he? Because who made I think John Mulaney made the observation, Trump is a poor person's idea of what a rich person looks like. Yeah, I got gold taps. And I think sort of Andrew Tate is like a 14-year-old boy's idea of what masculinity might look like.
Yeah, but why is that? What have boys been patterning their masculinity on for the past thousands of years before Andrew Tate was born? Well, I mean, they must have modeled it on somebody. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like what? Like if you don't like well, I don't know what he's gonna say, and I'm not gonna get upset or anything. But if Jimmy Carr believes that, and I do agree that Andrew Tate is a kind of almost like a bad parody of like a cartoon version of a straw man of masculinity, because it's not even a cartoon of masculinity, because it's like literally all of the most shallow surface level stuff. Like, I smoke cigars, I live in I get back rubs. Like, that's not the overwhelming majority of men don't live that way, and probably a lot of them don't even want to. They just want enough, but boys respond to that because they don't have anything else positive to respond to. Go ahead.
He says Andrew Tate is a 14-year-old boy's idea of masculinity. Andrew Tate is a feminist ideologue's idea of masculinity. Don't be this 14-year-old boy. This is literally, and I have said this how many times in the last 10 years we've been doing this podcast, and 20 years that I've been dealing with these issues or studying them or talking about them. Feminist conjecture removed all of the positive qualities from masculinity except for Playboy, which, it's not really seen as positive, but it's the only thing that is somewhat pro-social because you're appealing to the sexual desirability of women. Okay?
Thank you, CIA.
Everything that could define a man except for what Andrew Tate does. Everything. And I'm excluding all of the potentially criminal stuff. That's excluded.
Sure.
Just look at what he says and what he does that isn't criminal, right? They defined men as that. So this isn't a 14-year-old boy's idea of what masculinity is. It is the predominant ideology that defines masculinity's idea of what masculinity is. And they constructed it. Andrew Tate became that. It could be anybody else. It will be somebody else. In 5 years, nobody's going to give a crap about Tate. It's going to be a new person, a new man. And it's going to be defined by feminist idea of what a man is. They're going to walk into that role. They're going to be that character that feminism defined men to be. And then media is going to platform them. They're both going to construct this thing. And then they're going to say, this is who talks about men's issues. Aren't they all despicable? Screw it. We don't have to care about it. Right?
Yeah.
This is all constructed as far as I'm concerned. It is constructed. This isn't just a 14-year-old boy's idea of what masculinity is. It is a feminist ideologue's idea of what masculinity is. And what infuriates me about all of this is that for some reason, people think we have to answer to the decisions of feminists to construct masculinity in terms of what Andrew Tate represents, and then the decision of the media to present him
Well, it's not just us that has to answer. It's essentially the way that the way that women on the internet are responding to this. It's all of Western society will have to answer for this. They
Yep.
will make sure that we are all destroyed just
Because
so
of
that they
Andrew
can
Tate.
say because Andrew Tate exists or some like edgy boy said something mean on the internet, and that is women's way of proving that we shouldn't call them emotional.
Something occurred to me after we watched Lauren Southern, what she had to say. And she talked about how in 2016 she was against all of those feminists. But she's saying the exact same thing as those feminists. What were they doing in 2016? We need to censor the internet because there are edgy boys insulting women and saying misogynist things. That's exactly what they were doing. And how is it different than what she's saying now? Like, you got to call this out. You got to censor this, or we're going to tear it all down. We're going to burn it all down. Like, that's what she said, right? Am I nuts?
Well, she. You know what? We didn't get to the end of that, but I mean,
Okay, yeah, no.
I don't want to comment on that because I haven't seen it all yet. But
Okay, maybe I shouldn't comment on it, but that's
we'll come back to it. But I mean, this is like the sentiment online from a lot of so-called conservative women is that they don't like the mean things that some of the menfolk anonymous accounts are saying. So therefore, they're going to demonstrate that they are in fact not emotional by destroying the country through votes. That's how you prove that you do. You want to keep the vote.
Different than feminists.
No, it's not. It's the same. Well, it's
2016. Let's roll back the clock.
yeah. It's not.
We need to stop online harassment by throwing people in jail for words. Like,
Yeah.
It's not.
And I
So
mean,
you just become you live long enough and you become the enemy, I guess. Like that.
well, no, I think it was always there. That's the thing that my thinking is that this is not something that changed in these women. This is something these women always held. They just didn't. They were basically saying we will fight against the overreaches of feminism, but when it comes to the basic feminism that we like, we're gonna protect that. We're going to protect that if it takes destroying the entire country to do so. So none of these women were actually for like being as anti-feminist, even if they said they were anti-feminist or whatever, non-feminist, whatever you want to call it. None of them were for that. They wanted some feminism. They're like, can we have a little bit of feminism? Just a little bit. Can we have the suffragist feminism? Can we have this much? Because that was always the thing. Like I knew this from what I mentioned on the show before. I talked to Sydney Watson when she first got on the scene, and she did that men's march in Australia, and I had her on the show, and I was talking to her about the Middle East and like where feminism is necessary. I was trying to get a feel for like how much feminism she supported, and I was also questioning that myself at the time because this was years back, and she bought into the the patriarchy of that other country over there or the patriarchy of yesteryear. And I was like, well, this might be a problem. And I also talked to Lauren Chen about that. And Lauren Chen has kind of like she's moved with this. She doesn't talk about feminism a lot, but she is not as on board with this stuff as Sydney. And I think when Sydney came after the supposed red pill bros online, it wasn't that something changed. It was that she was just like the thing that she wanted to, the status quo that she wanted to protect, she was afraid she was going to lose. And so she had to like protect it in her mind. And that's what it is. It's like these people that are like, oh, I just want to go back to, an insert time period, the 2000s, the 90s, whatever. And they're not willing to challenge like the very root of whatever is happening because they just want to get to a certain point. I just want some of this, right? I don't want as much as we're getting now. But the problem is that because they allowed some of it before, that's how we got to where we are now. Yeah. And there has to be like a reformatting. You have to
push.
Yeah, go ahead.
Push the boulder up the mountain and then expect it not to continue to fall.
Yeah, you can't roll it halfway up. You have to, you know what I mean? Yeah,
you got to get it off the mountain.
Yes.
What I wanted to point out was it's the same dynamic of pointing to a small group of people who have an opinion and saying, because of these people, we need to punish everyone, all men. It's the same dynamic. And like, what do you want? These guys have the right to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, Kat Turner
Yeah,
has
for
the right
sure.
to say, "Make me a sandwich." Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think we're getting into a
Shank
different
said-
subject.
Yeah, Chank said, "Make me a sandwich" to Hannah or Karen, not Hannah, Karen. But ultimately, it is the same dynamic, and it is the dynamic that is the problem. This idea that men have some kind of responsibility or blame for the actions of a few, right? That's not fair. And that we should censor people because you find something insulting. Like, I just had this incredible thing come out of the UK, this case where a woman shoved a glass in a man's face, a broken glass in a man's face, because he didn't guess her age right, and the judge got her off because because it was not appreciated. The banter wasn't appreciated by her. She found it embarrassing or insulting. So a woman can violently assault a man because of her feelings. Is that really a world we want to live in? These women can justify supposedly voting to destroy the country. Now, whether or not they're actually doing that is another question, but that's what they're saying because they feel insulted. I don't want to be ruled by people like that. I don't want to have people like that in power. I don't want people like that making decisions for me. Right? This is not acceptable. Because you feel insulted isn't acceptable to glass a man, to shove broken glass in the eyes of a man. Well, I don't think she got his eyes, thankfully. Or to burn your country down. Not acceptable. Your feelings are not a justification for any kind of violence.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I got a super chat from Iggy Thunders. He says, people keep saying Carr's a Gen X kid, not a boomer. They don't get it. A boomer is any man or woman, left or right, that thinks every problem can be solved by shaming men. Well, that would make almost everybody a boomer, wouldn't it? All right, let's play more of the video.
Like, it's really, and of course, nature abhors a vacuum. And there's a real vacuum for elders. Like, we don't learn how to shave from our fathers. It's a YouTube video. And so you lose something in that bonding. So there's a big bit in the new show where I give a young guy, an audience member, a pretty tough time. Like, we have the talk, and I give them advice on how to be with a woman.
I'm pausing it there. I don't know what he's going to say, but I just wanted to pause for the banana. And yes, that's true. I mean, guys are learning how to tie their ties, if they even want to tie a tie, how to shave,
how to be with
it's almost like it's almost like the fatherlessness thing has an impact.
How to be with a woman. Every woman, like that, you yourself know how to be with any woman. Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know what he's gonna say. I mean, I think I don't know what maybe he's trying to make a point.
Oh, yeah,
maybe.
No doubt.
Yeah,
No doubt
yeah.
it's going to be in. Let me make a prognostication. No doubt it's going to be. Oh, you are a problem in a woman's life. This is how you mitigate it. So let's find out.
Oh well, we'll see.
And I'm not wrong about anything. It's really funny and it's really rude, but I'm not wrong about stuff. It's about consent, and I think it's really good because I've sugared the pill of the message because people don't want to talk about it. People go, it's obvious what consent is. Yeah, not to 17-year-old boys or girls. It's like, actually, what does that look like, and how should that be?
Saving
so
throw.
It's a really fun routine. It's a really fun routine to perform and to write.
Saving throw there, or 17-year-old girls. It's as if they're.
I mean, it's almost like
their impulse control
Again, I think that men and women have done just fine for millennia. So what's changed? Why are they unable to model their behavior? What do they have to model their behavior on? I mean, it's funny, if you take like a father out of the home and you do this over multiple generations, and there's like no male presence in the home, and then the children, they grow up, and some of them, the ones that don't become dysfunctional, they decide they're going to try and learn how to navigate the world. And instead of going to peers or whatever, they might just look on TV. They might go to YouTube videos. They might go on the internet and look who's on the internet to teach them. Feminists. I mean, that's like, remember when Lacey Green was like at her peak? Like all of her videos, she was making all these videos about consent and rape culture and all these other things. Well, if you're a young man and you don't have your father, Lacey Green, she's got big boobs. Let me learn from her. And sure enough, she's there to teach you that, you know, as a man, you are a patriarch and you have to ask for consent at every step of the interaction. I mean, what was her channel called? She had this one called Braless, but that was when she was working for MTV. But there was one before that, and it was just like all about like sex stuff.
I don't remember what it was called. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly either, but it was a long time ago.
Let's go to the next.
All right, the next time code is 27. Oh, this is the next bit. What it means to be a man. I'm sure, or what it is to be a man. It should be, very educational.
What is it to be a man these days? Because it's quite confusing in terms, even the conversation around like chivalry and understanding, you know.
Well, people talk about toxic masculinity and easy fix.
All right, I'm gonna pause it there before he talks. You know, it's funny. These guys are discussing. They're asking this question as though, like, everything has to be socialized or engineered. Like, what does it mean to be a man these days? Well, probably means the same thing that it's always meant. But it's not men that have changed. I mean, like, men's role hasn't really changed, has it? Like, they're still expected to do the same things.
Protect.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. Men's role has never changed, and men's role will probably never change because women will always want, even if they want to be girl boss, independent, strong, all that, empowered, etc., they're going to want men within arm's reach just in case the barbarians come, you know, to the walls. Like, just in case. Because, so it's like men are they occupy a space where we keep these people like this, like these intellectuals, they talk around this, like, oh, men, what is masculinity? What does it mean to be a man? What is it anyway? While they're on the internet talking to each other in an air-conditioned room built by like all of these things that men have invented, built, and maintained to this day. And they're still going, what does it even mean to be a man though, guy? As they, like, you know, go, let me go check on you know what I'm saying? Like, everything, men are doing the same thing. Like, this is not something that we can, like, pontificate about. It already exists. Like, what are you talking about?
What are men? Look around you.
Yeah.
Like, literally, they go, okay, so you got this feminist academic. Oh, what good are men? What are men for? As she goes to work in a car, most likely designed by a man, built by a man, serviced by a man.
Yeah, it's actually, you know, it's funny. I don't think. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, fueled by gas that's gotten off a oil rig by a man and put through pipes laid down by men and most likely pumped into her car by a gas attendant who is a man, then gets into a high-rise building built by men, into an elevator designed and serviced by men, into her office where she pours herself a cup of coffee. The coffee is no doubt delivered by a man. The water main that brings her the water that gets her cup of coffee is built and maintained by men. And she sits down at a desk that was no doubt designed and built by men, turns on her computer, also designed and built by men, using electricity maintained by men, to sit back in her chair, built and most likely maintained by men, to ponder, what are men for? Are you flipping kidding me?
Yeah.
What are men for? Well, take away everything a man is responsible for building and maintaining, and then ask yourself that. And people don't like to engage with this thought experiment because instantaneously they realize just what men are for. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
You know what it reminds me? Whenever I hear this, people are talking about like men. Like men's role is actually pretty clearly defined. They're doing it now. Women's role is the thing that's actually in question. I think women are the ones that are sort of like going through a bit of an identity crisis.
Yes.
But this whole thing reminds me of this line from The Matrix. I'm going to read it for you so you guys can see what I mean by this, okay? So this is Morpheus talking to Neo when he's explaining to him what the Matrix is. And I want you to think about this in the context of men basically running everything. The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That men basically keep everything running, and what are you complaining about? Like seriously, like it's that ubiquitous that you can't see it. That's the thing. And of course, it's almost like people have to do that because I think that they would have like an experience like of such cognitive dissonance to like actually take a step out and say, holy shit, actually, without men, this whole thing falls apart and the birth rates are declining. What are we doing? Like, how am I complaining about men on the internet when the internet is the reason, like men are the reason for the internet? Like,
I'm going to say,
you know,
people who are having babies today, your child is going to come of age, or it's going to be having their old age in the twilight of this civilization, in the nightmare years of this civilization. Like, unless we fix this problem. Like, children born today are going to be experiencing unbelievable levels of destruction and poverty and isolation when they are in their senior years, because we're not fixing this problem. And that includes the girls, feminists. Like, you don't want to support this society of great privilege and comfort. Like, there has never been a society like this. Yeah. Where women can have the life they want, arrange their life in whatever way they want, make the decisions that they want to make. And men in the past were constrained as well, but let's not get into this. Incredible society of liberty and prosperity. If you want to maintain this society, we need to solve this problem. We need to solve the problem of getting people together and pair bonding, right? Otherwise, we're facing the twilight, and girls born today will be experiencing that. And you got to care about something. What am I talking about? I already know they don't care about anything but the freaking bank accounts. All right, let's keep going.
All right, let's keep going.
Be a gentleman, be a mensch. That's it. This is done. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. A gentleman.
What's a mensch? Any Brits in the chat? Can you guys explain to me what a mensch is?
It's a Yiddish word.
For what? Oh, okay. Any Jews in the chat want to tell me what?
I have an anecdote. Like
Oy vey.
The GQ guy who came to ICMI 2014, and he explicitly came to try to discredit us with an individual of extremely unpleasant social interests, shall we say. I mean, being very euphemistic there. I'm not going to explain any further. But this individual was running around trying to find sound bites to make us look as bad as possible. And I remember he talked at length with my husband, Jonathan. And then he concluded that he was a mensch. So I don't know if that helps.
Okay. No, I don't know. Maybe,
It could have been.
Somebody said just a nice guy. It's German for human. Okay. Well, mensch does mean human in German.
It was Yiddish. Okay.
Well, I don't know. Let's keep going.
Woman is never rude by accident. It's Christopher Hitchens' line. Great. I don't know. I mean, my thing about young men today, if I was going to give young men advice, it would be get the right drugs and the real thing, right? In real life. Live in real life, right? So why young men are
do
obsessed
not need advice. They need people to care about them and support them.
I mean, I guess like good advice is a kind of caring.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, men desire. Oh, go
deliver
ahead.
The advice and basically think that's the end of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get what you're saying. I don't know. Somebody's saying it is Yiddish. Is just German and Yiddish? Do they share some kind of relationship. No pun intended. I mean, I'm not go. I'm just, I'm just saying, like,
tiptoe.
sometimes Yiddish sounds German. I don't know if that's a coinky dink, but okay.
Video games, right? Obsessed. They're spending hours and hours and hours online playing video games. Why? Well, that's a proxy for career. Right, video games. You think about the levels of video games and what people do on video games. That's a proxy. That's like it's a substitute for the career that they're not having.
It's a proxy for male community.
Actually, there is, Warren Farrell has said this too.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually said that the boys are playing too many video games and they're not winning at life, they're winning at video games. But Allison, I'm sorry, I have to step away for just a second. I have to go to the restroom. It's an emergency. I'll be right back. Can you just just say what you want to say? Okay.
I'll talk amongst myself. Okay. So essentially this individual is now taking on Warren Farrell's statement about how boys substitute a career and success in career with video gaming. Now, from what I've seen, what they're actually substituting is male community. So the feeling of being able to cooperate with other men to improve the circumstance or to influence the circumstance, for freedom and democracy, that kind of thing. So and the fact is that doesn't seem to exist in any capacity in the world. Like the HR department is destroying the sense of male cooperation. The fact of forced diversity is destroying the sense of male cooperation. So where do men get that fraternity, that community? They can't get it because, of course, it is the old boys club, right? It's suspected as the vector of dread patriarchy into the community. So all of men's cooperative endeavors in the context of the greater community have become suspect. So where do they go to get that feeling of camaraderie, cooperation with other men? They go to games. And unless you want to bring that back into the community, they're going to continue to go to games. So it's not just earning a point, it's also being able to work with your friends, your male friends, in order to make this virtual realm a better place, or just have some influence over it somehow, to enjoy the experience of having influence over a universe, that feeling like you matter, that you're a hero of something, and that you are doing so in conjunction with your male companions. That's what my opinion of what games do. And if you want to, taking that away is not going to solve anything. It's just going to completely remove any way for men to get that from anywhere. And it's going to what will happen is, if you take games away from men, you're not going to get more success in career from men. Like, you're not going to get men working harder. You're going to get men checking out entirely. You're going to get men going completely black, or going completely dark, like either killing themselves, going comatose, just descending into drugs, just completely removing themselves from society. You're not. This is not a competition between games and career. This is a competition between games and the death of self. All right, you take that away, you're not going to get more success from men. You're going to get more death, more suicide, more giving up from men. Right? So I don't know why you can say games are the problem, but right now they're one of the few things keeping men invested in society and keeping men going. As society decides that it doesn't have to do that work, it doesn't have to create a system where men can cooperate and feel like they're bettering the world in a consistent and understandable way. Like our society basically says, you are a net detriment to the world, right? As a man, you are a net detriment. What your predominant influence over the world is oppression as a man. Like, there's no other real message out there about men and what men are doing in society towards women and the rest of society, except the oppression narrative, the you are a burden narrative, that you take away from society narrative, that you are not good for people, the people around you, that you don't benefit them as a man. If you left, they'd be better off. That's the narrative we give men. They go to games to get the narrative that they are important, that they are doing something valuable, or kick off and just go crazy and be psychotic. That that has its place too. But that's where they get the message that their actions matter and that they matter. And that they can have not just that their actions matter and that they matter, but that their relationships with other men matter. Okay? That's where they get from games. That's what they get from games. And our society is not giving that to them. So it's like I said, it's not a competition between games, succeeding in games and succeeding in society. You take away games and you take away the last place where men are really told that they matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's a live show, so I had to get out for just a second. I'm back now. Live show, guys. That's the price that you pay. Sometimes nature calls, you just got to answer. So
yeah,
she doesn't leave a message.
She just beams her thoughts right into the nervous nucleus.
You got to take the call. Just like other women, they'll nag you until you can't take it anymore.
Okay, what I was going to say is we're all pretty, like, honestly, guys, a lot of this is just all three of us, me, Karen, Brian, we got our issues, shall we say.
Yeah, right. But look, I just wanted to say, no, I'm okay. It was just like, for summer, I had a coffee and it just ran through me. But what I was going to say is, I mean, I think the thing about the games is that, of course, these things can be done to excess. But the problem is that we have kind of taken away young men's purpose, because like what do men want? Like what do young men want ultimately? You already covered that, right? So if you
said that there's no purpose, there's no sense of worth in what they do in society, because they're basically told that everything that they do is wrong.
Essentially, you are asking men to embrace the material, not the transcendent, because I think that if men had a right place to be, like if we cared about them and loved them enough to say, this is for you in society, instead of blaming them for everything and knocking them down, constantly, and we just told them, like, what do you want to do? What is your mission? And a man with a mission, that's when I think they're at their happiest. And it doesn't have to be for a woman. I get that people want to think that I'm going to make the case for that. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that's what women are drawn to. And so we have this situation where men are not supposed to pursue anything other than their own gratification. Because when you get rid of, look at the end of the Barbie movie, okay? To as an example, at the end of the Barbie movie, Ken thought that his purpose was to be with Barbie because they were made for each other, which they were, right? But of course, Greta Gerwig wanted to subvert the whole thing, and instead Ken can just be on his own. But what does that mean? Like, what does it really mean? It means that he is supposed to be enough by himself and she's supposed to be enough by herself. And that sounds nice, but ultimately, if everyone did that, we would be extinct. So men know this on some instinctual level. They're like, well, I would like to live for more than that. But when you don't give them anything, then they do pursue the material and they do play video games or something else that distracts them. They watch sports, they watch porn, whatever, right? And then when they do that, they still what?
Well, they're still, again, men are still maintaining society, so
they are. I know. I know most of them.
Tits,
Well, I get it. No, most of them are, and I'm not. But what I'm saying is that, like, and I think that that's the thing. Like, to essentially take away the means by which the average man could build a family, which is what most men want to do, and one of the things to do that involves attracting a woman, and one of the things to do that involves pursuing some kind of a mission. They don't have to necessarily chase their dreams. I'm more of the Mike Rowe camp where it's like, for a few people, they're going to be able to do that. But most people, they're just going to be happy with something that, allows them to, especially with men, work with their hands or use their skills, essentially bring value to some greater thing. Like they build something with a bunch of other dudes. And I think that's enough for the average guy. But then that will attract women. But what we've done in our economy, in our job market, etc., is we've essentially bent over backwards for women to educate them, to encourage them to pursue careers, etc. And we've also told those same women that because they have all those things, either because we told them or they had this instinct, it's probably a combination of both of those things, women are looking for men that are completely out of their reach, like they don't even exist. So then you get like these average men who are ignored by women. They might be doing fine, they might be keeping society running, but they're alone, and so they just spend their time doing something else. How can we blame them for that? Like that's what I'm getting at. How can we blame them for that and what we're doing is essentially when you create that vacuum between men and women, where women are looking for something that isn't there and men can't even get their attention, but they still keep things going, both of those groups of people are going to pursue the material. And so we can't shame men for getting into video games because the conditions of, to an excessive degree. I like to play video games. Lindsay likes to play video games. She's playing Minecraft in the other room right now. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. I hope you don't think that I'm shaming people for playing video games. But what I'm saying is that if you have a problem with guys that are playing video games for like 20 hours or some crazy amount of time, and they're not doing anything but working, sleeping, and playing video games, well, that's not his fault because he doesn't have anything else. And now these same people that created these conditions are trying to go into those spaces, and they're trying to like make that uninhabitable for men as well. So then men have nothing left, and that's that's why the Sweet Baby Inc. thing is created such a massive backlash. I watched a little bit of a live stream today on Side Scrollers, and Grums was on there, Mark Kern, and he went on a bit of a tirade about like what was going on, and I was like, holy crap, I love this. Like I was feeling it because he was saying what I've been saying for 10 years, and he was like a professional in the industry. And so men are starting to.
What was he saying?
It was basically just talking about how like there was about this specific sort of fight that people are involved with right now regarding this game called Stellar Blade and the censorship. And even though the censorship that's happening is very slight, he says we can't, we cannot like compromise this. Like this is, I've had enough. Like he was basically saying like these people that do this, they're not doing this because of something they claim to want to see. They're doing this because men like me are enjoying this thing and they can't let us enjoy it. So he's like sort of seeing what it is, right? It's a thing that like, as he described it, cis het men enjoy, therefore they can't have it and we have to attack it. And he's like, I'm not, and he was like, and he's like, I'm not compromising this. We are not going to let them like have this. They can't have this. We have to win this. And I was like, there you go. Now you see it. I've been saying this for 10 years. Like, none of this like, none of this compromise. You have to stop. It was another great clip I saw, and it was a woman. Her name is Kersha. And they were talking about, did you see the clip of Adam Sessler where she was like basically saying, fuck this guy. Like they were, because like, so Adam Sessler used to work for, what was it called? That game G4, I think. And he used to be like, he was claimed to be like I'm all about the gamers, right? But he attacked gamers and basically people in general after 2016 because that broke everybody's brains for some reason. And like after that, supposedly he's been having a hard time, and like the guy from Side Scrollers, Stuttering Craig, he was like, oh, well, I feel kind of bad for him. And Kershaw was like, no, fuck that guy. And she basically laid it all out. She was like, he wished death on people. He was like, because that's the thing is like these people, they I get it. Like, I get it. And I think it's justified. Like, look, if you were basically telling me to eat shit and die for 10 years and now you're suffering, I mean, I feel bad for you, but I'm not going to tell you that, like, you know, it's all good. Come on over here. Because who knows? You're not going to do that shit again. Like, especially this year. So I get it, you know, and so like, but what I appreciate is not so much that. What I appreciate is that people are at the point now where they could see very clearly that there is an ideological rot that is the problem, and it's not ethics. It's not like, you know, somebody has differing opinions. It's not that. It's like there is a ideological rot, and people are seeing the consequences of that socially, and it is targeting mostly men. It is targeting men, and it is targeting men's interests. And even people who claim to care about men, when they bring this up in this kind of concern trolley way, where it's like, well, I don't want you playing video games all day. Well, you don't understand that this is all that is left. Like you said, you know, this is why. So like, why don't we address, I don't think that men want to be doing that either. I think that they'd like to be doing something, you know, like, for like that they felt they were contributing to some bigger mission, you know, like I was saying, like that's what men want. Men generally, I'm not speaking for you guys in the chat, want a mission, and we like what they need for that is the freedom to pursue that, and they need somebody or they need something to sort of point them in that direction, and all we do now is discourage them.
Oh, I was going to say about Grimm and what he had to say about, you know, they're just attacking games because cishet white men like him like those games. Well, what it actually is...
It wasn't Grimm, it was Grums.
Grums, sorry.
Grums.
It's actually part of what's actually happening is they want to use games. They want to turn games into a vehicle of their ideology. And they want to be able to use them to control people like Grums and control their opinions. That's what they want. It's the same thing with we didn't care about men's issues until Andrew Tate started to become very influential with the boys. Well, now we care because somebody has control or has influence over this demographic, and we don't want them to have influence over this demographic. They see games as a tool to have influence over men or to have command over men. Brian, you have frozen. So no.
I have. Oh,
you were just pondering. Okay, that's okay.
I was checking my phone. I was checking my phone for something.
In my head canon, you were pondering your orb.
No, I'm here. I'm good.
Okay.
All right, let's play some more of this. Yeah. How much time do we have? Like 15 minutes. So
yeah, let's.
And then they spend a lot of time, you know, fapping to Pornhub or YouPorn or whatever. And that's a proxy for sex. And my thing would be, George Orwell wasn't right. Our power won't be taken away from us by some authoritarian master. We're going to give it away for cheap dopamine. And
I wouldn't cut the authoritarian master out so quick there, bud.
No, I think it's an overlap. It's all of it. It's Huxley, it's Orwell, it's Fahrenheit. It's Fahrenheit 411 or whatever it is.
In a blender and just zoop.
Yep.
Dystopia smoothie.
It's all of it.
But okay. He was saying, so he's saying like, but here's the thing: the central problem is that these men aren't attractive to women, and they aren't attractive to women because.
Well, maybe he says that. I don't know. He's like, obviously.
You're right.
Like, I mean, yeah, like. I think that like actual sex is better than fapping. I mean, am I wrong? But the problem is that like actual sex is
not on the table.
Has never been. Yeah, it's not on the table. Exactly. So it's like, well, what do men do? That's what I'm saying. You can't just take it away from them. You have to like, we have to like give them a path to something great. It's just not going to make them happy in the long run.
And the cheap dopamine of video games and online porn and living online is getting in the way of real life. So it's risk, right?
Okay, can I just does this guy think that men were trucking along, dating women, having a great time, taking her out for ice cream, you know, getting some nookie in the back of the freaking bleachers. Everybody's in there getting relationships, having children, having successful jobs, taking care of their kids, doing all this thing, and then just one day, I don't know, a flip switched in men's brains, and they're like, you know what? I don't want any of that. I just want games and porn. Screw you. And then they just walked off. And, you know, like, is this what these guys think happened?
Well, I don't know if he might make the case that, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the video. I know a lot. Okay, I'll say this. I know that there are a lot of people who fret about men watching too much porn, mostly because they're afraid of how it will affect women. I know there are a lot of people who fret about men playing too many video games, mostly because they fret about how those men won't be able to contribute to wider society. But what they're not asking is, like, what is in it for them? And that's the thing. Like, what does society, not just women, what does society bring to the table? Because they're not doing anything. They're just expecting things. This goes back to what. No, this goes back to
recognition of what they are doing already.
Right. This goes back to what I was saying before about how, you know, we're all like talking about how men's role supposedly changed, and I said no, it has. It's been the same. It's women's role that has lost its it's not recognized, and women's role has basically become immaterial. It's basically become like there is no mission for women. There's no they can do whatever they want except complain. Yeah. But like they can do whatever they want, which means they end up not doing anything particularly interesting, and nobody can criticize them. No one can hold them to a standard.
Consequence.
Right.
Because nobody can criticize them. Their choices have no consequence. They exist in a world where nothing that they do really matters. Because, you know, the cleanup crew goes behind them and tries to scrub away all the consequences.
Yeah. And then they go, well, why am I right? And they have like a 40-hour work week, and they're like, why am I not happy? You know, I'm independent, I'm strong, I have my own place, I have my own money. Why am I miserable?
Because you all did that out of spite. Like, you didn't do it because it was out of your own desires. You did it out of spite, to spite the patriarchy, to smash the patriarchy. You never thought, well, what do I want? No, you only thought in terms of, well, what will make men pissed at me? And honestly, men don't care. I think maybe that's the most galling thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why all these guys all these red pill guys who get het up over these issues are the ones who get, because they actually make women think that they're doing anything, that they're actually are spiting the patriarchy. Like, you know, all the red pill guys who get upset over whatever choices women make that isn't like being a trad wife, not even a trad wife, but isn't like being a Hollywood fiction, you know, stepping out of a Hollywood advertisement from the 50s, right? Maybe they're actually, like, the mainstream is actually promoting these men because it does give women a sense that they've spited someone, when in fact, most men don't care.
Right.
That you have not smashed the patriarchy because the patriarchy don't give a fuck because it doesn't exist. But even if it did, it probably wouldn't care. All right, so. Oh,
if it did, you wouldn't be able to complain about it. Yeah. Okay. Albert, I got a super chat we have to answer these. So I got a super chat from Albert Nader Retro. He says, men like Asian, men like booty, there for bootylicious. Asian is misogynistic. Ketchup women most affected. I will not even try to translate that. And then I got a Super Chow, but I missed it because I was indisposed temporarily. But I will read it because I do have the Discord up here. So Great Indoors gave us $10. Thank you, Great Indoors. And says, I want to point out that throughout the podcast, Carr and the host are talking about hardship and how to be your best self and getting goals set and done. All I could think of was, quote, but where's men's motivation to try and do those things nowadays, end quote. If given the choice now, I think most men are content with a modest income that will allow them the most individual freedom, but maybe I'm biased. No, they would, because here's the thing. You know, that meme of like the empty apartment building with like, you know, one futon and a game console and a flat screen TV, and it says, you know, men will literally live like this and be fine. Why wouldn't they? Because that's what I'm saying. Like, if you take away something else for men to strive for primarily, like a partner to share their life with and potentially a family, then they won't pursue anything outside of exactly what they need. And you can't complain about that, because what would be the point if women have already been propagandized over generations and they're convinced that they don't need men? Maybe the problem isn't with men. It's just like I've said all this time, where people are always like worried about like my right-wing backlash, my Handmaid's Tale. I always say, well, if you just told men that you love them, no matter how angry they were, they would drop everything and immediately hook up. Immediately. They're waiting for women to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think. Like, they're just waiting for women to say, I'm sorry.
Or not even a sorry, just this, I love and appreciate you and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where there's more sex available to young men, and they're still walking away, and they're walking away because they don't feel like they can get love. That's the simple thing. Women do not give the impression that they are capable of loving men. Full stop. They don't give the impression. They don't give the impression that they feel like they should, or that they even will, right? And that's why, in my opinion, from what I've seen, that's why young men are walking away from trying to form families. And games don't replicate career. They replicate family and community.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion. Let's try to finish this.
I got one more. Well, I got a Rumble rant.
Lord.
Well, that's life, Allison. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe we should just tell people not to donate anything.
No.
And then we'll just okay.
That's good.
NovaFan21 gave us $2 and says, just talk to real women. The worst she could say is no. Gosh golly, what do you think, Robo AI Waifu? Robo AI Waifu says, men are not evil for supporting feminism. All right. Thank you, NovaFan. I did get that message. Let us play the next thing.
That's what we're not allowing young people to do, because we're saying to young people, you can't take risks in real life. We're helicopter parenting. We're not giving them the freedom. How much freedom should you give a kid? As much as they can cope with, right? 14-year-olds used to be babysitters. They now need babysitters. That's not good, right? So you should allow them more freedom in the real world, because otherwise, the only place they get freedom is online. And no freedom in the real world. You're not allowed to go to the park and hang out, but you're...
Okay, fair enough.
Pausing it there. I don't know that men get that much freedom online. Well, at least it's under attack.
What he's saying isn't objectionable, though.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Allowed to do whatever you want online. Well, that feels like a very bad social experiment. That feels like a bad idea. Yeah, it feels like we've inverted, Maslow, this pyramid, the hierarchy of needs, and you go, well, food and shelter and warmth and we've got all the bottom stuff worked out in our society, right? We kind of can't see it. We're not grateful for that because we can't see
the hot shower.
We can't see the third world, and we can't see the people in the past having a tougher time than us. So
yeah, you can't see the men keeping everything running.
Mm-hmm.
They basically took care of the bottom levels of the Maslow's hierarchy, right? Assuming that you don't just ignore, your stomach when it's rumbling.
It's almost like we're victims of our own success. Like human society, maybe that's where all like the ancient societies. This is what happens to them. They get to a certain point, and then everybody's just like, well, we don't want to breed anymore because we're bored. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Maybe, or we needed some.
Kills us.
There could be, but the thing is though, like there are ways to learn gratitude, without having to experience the suffering.
Yeah, you
that
just
comes with it.
Learn to be. You just repeat gratitude.
You
write a journal. You write, "I am grateful for," and there you go. All right, so let's.
Right.
I want to get.
Keep going.
do we take it for granted? But we've worked out that stuff. They hadn't worked that stuff out 200 years ago. But they had the top of the pyramid sorted. Everyone knew who they were, they had their identity, and they knew what their purpose was. Everyone knew who they were, what they were about, and they were connected to the others in the group. And now we're kind of free-floating individuals. We kind of worship the individual as if we can survive as individuals.
I don't want to make a theological case here, but I'm tempted to. There is something that we need that I think older generations had probably figured out. And I don't think our comforts that we have today are necessarily the cause. I think that's one of the things that I see is like people, they talk about how modernity is the problem, but they do this on the internet, in live streams, in podcasts. So it's like, no, you're using modernity to make the claims. That's not the problem. The existence of stuff is not the problem.
No.
Right? It is.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that there is a community has almost disintegrated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the internet did that. I think that the destruction of families did that. I think that
men's spaces, men cooperating.
yeah, men's spaces, men's fraternity, mentorship.
Men's ability to create community has been severely curtailed. And,
Yes.
Sorry, guys, I forgot to get close like this. I apologize. So I said that men's ability to create communities through their cooperative efforts with each other has been severely curtailed. It's been relegated to games, when usually all of that would have been building the community around them. Taking part in Shriners and other clubs and, charity efforts and all of that other stuff. They would have been a structure for the community. These men, the men going out and, being friends. It's like the King of Kensington. If you've ever watched that, he goes out and he's part of all kinds of different people and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that men aren't allowed to do that anymore. They don't do that anymore. And we are poorer for it. We don't have the community that we used to have, which means we don't have the meaning and purpose we used to have. So that's my thought. Let's continue though, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
I always think of that thing of like, there's no such thing as a baby. There's a baby and a mother. There's a baby and a father, baby and an auntie, but there's no such thing as a baby because a baby on its own isn't anything. It's dead. It needs taken care of. We're all still babies. We all need the connections. Yourself, yeah, sure, there's a lot of yourself that's within you, but a lot of it is out in the world. It's connected to other people, and it mediates who you think you are. And that's slightly missing from society where you kind of live online and you're kind of a self-authored thing. You're just on the computer, on the screen. And
yeah, I would say that's true. And the last few years, without getting specific, did not help.
Nope.
Especially when it comes to isolating and atomizing young people, children, teenagers. Yeah, I mean, but I think that the situation that young men find themselves in, it's not desirable. I think that if they could, hang out with friends in a group setting with other boys, I think they would.
Log cabin.
They would, or a clubhouse,
Yeah.
It was a tree house.
Mm-hmm.
I never had a tree house as a kid because my family is super poor.
Well, what I mean is just building stuff together, maintaining a community, like doing stuff like that. But that's not available anymore.
No, because men can't. I mean, you can't even have the Boy Scouts.
Well, and also everything's built in many places.
That's true, but I mean,
yeah, you can't even have the Boy Scouts because they have to.
Can't even no fraternity. I mean, there is no place left. Yeah. Where men can just be, or young men can just be with each other. Locker rooms, sports teams, boys clubs, Boy Scouts.
We're aiming for a certain amount of time.
Oh yeah, we should end it here, right?
No.
Okay.
We probably should finish the time codes. Don't say the word.
All of them?
The word. There's only 1 minute after this time code is over.
Okay.
You're not connected and you're not taking risks.
This time code is
is this in part
almost 2 minutes longer?
Atheism and agnosticism. I think we.
Ooh, there's an interesting query. Okay. Yes, I think so. And I know it's gonna piss people off. Let me read it. I got a super chat. Some super chows and super chats real quick. I'm gonna read them. So Richard Bier gives us $5 and says, this seems rather similar to the shoe video with the complaints from women. Thank you, Richard, for that super chow. And then I got, two super chats from Albernata Retro. Gives us $2 Canadian. Says, the Asian girl in that video game has a good butt. He's talking about Stellar Blade. I agree. Although I like the artist. I've seen the artist work before. And then he says, as for the ketchup thing, Hannah can explain. $2 Canadian. Thank you. I'm not going to ask. And then he says, again, for $2 Canadian. Lastly, thanks for the backup on Facebook, Brian. No, it's okay. I don't want to get into it, but there is the Rambo is an interesting movie because the story doesn't make sense in the way that it's presented. But anyway, okay. That's all the Super Chow. So let's hear about this.
We both, me and you, lost our sort of religious faith around the same age. I think sort of early
mid 20s. I think it's a weird thing where you can lose your. I certainly don't believe in the stories. There's two types of fools, right? There's people that take religion literally, and there's people that think it has no value.
Okay, let's just pause there for the banana. Okay, I want him to conclude his thought before we add our 2 cents. So
sure, yeah. All right, I'm gonna let him finish.
Okay, both idiots for different reasons. Like, it works as a thing, religion. I miss it because the reason the ceremony works isn't because God's pleased. It's because the people came together. And so I think we look for things that are proxies for religion. And sometimes that's football. It could be environmentalism, because you go, well, I need something. I need purpose in my life. I need to
pause for the okay. So I wonder how far he's going to conclude. We look for things related to religion.
There's like another there's a minute.
So he might get there. Like he's skirting the hole.
Well, I'll give him another 30 seconds. We'll see.
Let him bake.
I feel like I'm
let him cook.
And what a great cause! I'm going to save the planet. It's a big thing to think about. It's got a religiosity to it, but I don't think that's I don't think that's necessarily the answer. Some people do it with politics. They think politics is going to be heaven. They're going to come up with some perfect system. I think you're putting too much pressure on politics.
Okay, I'm pausing again for the banana. I'm not going to say anything yet.
He's getting. You think he's for?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Bets.
First time I've ever said this, actually. But when you just said, I think.
Well, I don't know. It depends on what we mean by get.
Okay.
I mean, I have my
the DEI initiatives, the feminism, all of that is.
Oh no, I don't think so. But he kind of does when he says environmentalism, because it is essentially environmentalism as a religion is basically saying God he can't do anything because he's not real, but I am, so I will. It's like I'm going to create heaven on earth. Government, it's the same thing. Literally, communism is worship of the government. The state is God. That's what it is. You can't convince me otherwise. Just look at North Korea. What is Kim Jong-un if not, God on earth made flesh to the people who live there? Or Xi Jinping, which is basically very similar. So, all right, let's play the rest of this clip.
I miss religion. I think I miss religion.
It's nice, wasn't it? It's a lovely thought as well when you lose someone that you love very much. It's a lovely thought. I mean, heaven it's a lovely thought. And I think in a way, in our culture, fame and fortune has replaced heaven. It's the land of milk and honey and where you can feel like you're...
Hold on, let me finish
everything's okay.
Okay. This is really interesting because fame and fortune is often what societies that are highly militaristic, or highly warrior based, are based around the idea of death. Viking society, samurai society, this idea that men need to be at any moment be willing to sacrifice their lives, and they have this seeking of immortality through fame, and that's why one of the things is like poetry. You want to have your name written in the sagas so that you achieve immortality.
Sure, like Achilles, right?
Yeah.
Immortality, it's yours.
Yeah.
Take it.
It just occurred to me when he was saying that. And it's interesting that our society has gone from people achieving immortality through developing developing prosperity, developing a place for people to live, a home, family, to fame.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe the next step is that we're all gonna start to become quite violent. I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows?
Okay.
We finish off this clip or no?
Sure. Let's get her done.
Everything's taken care of, and it is good. But it's not heaven. I don't believe in an afterlife. I believe in a next life.
Maybe
so I don't think anything happens after you die, but I think you can have a next life.
Utopianism on
a very different life.
Huh?
Well, maybe the belief in heaven is about reducing utopianism or the behaviors around utopianism on Earth. Because
if you look at it in a utilitarian, and if you look at it in a utilitarian way, then it would be a very good counter, because like all of the like Soviet Russia started like as a byproduct of this kind of like secular atheist humanist these intellectual movements came out of the Enlightenment and so on. And I think it was about essentially like, well, there's nothing after this life, so why don't we make this life the best life? And hence communism, the Soviet Union, Bolshevism, whatever you want to call it, and all the deaths that came after it. But what I thought was interesting was he said that when we were religious, people came together because they all believed in the same God, right? And they would form community around that, and they would go to church together, and they would share things together, and they would have this whole community built under this belief. I mean, I'm saying obviously it's not the only thing, but it's like a big part of it. Who's to say that's not God acting, though? Like, who's to say that isn't God acting in the world when we all come together and we all move in the same direction? Then we form bonds based on that. I'm not evangelizing. I'm just saying, like, when you look at it, especially in the UK, which has become like way more secular than the US, they're being invaded by people who are religiously driven, and they are connected, and they are forming community together, and they're very protective of each other, and they have a very strong faith. And the people, the residents, the English, the native population is weakened by that because they don't have that, because it is largely secular. And so, I mean, believe what you want to believe. I'm not telling people to believe in God. I'm just saying the people who do believe are doing better than the ones who are atomized, right? And so, like, when Jimmy Carr says, I do miss it, reminds me of Richard Dawkins when he was, he talked about recently when he was like, he was like one of the big four horsemen. And he was like, I didn't mind when Britain was Christian because we had all of this beauty and this art. And frankly, I liked living under a Christian society more than what could become what is looking like an Islamic society. And so it's like, almost like the will of human beings and the drive they have is a force that most Western people are not prepared for if they don't have something to meet that force at equal measure. And I think that's what Christianity does. I mean, like, just like any other. Although the really only two to compare is Christianity and Islam, because without going into it too much, Judaism is interesting because it's the only exclusive religion. You don't convert easily. It's very hard to get into that club. But when it comes to Christianity and Islam, they're always looking for new people. So anyway, I don't know. I'm just saying, if we were doing really well under Christianity and you miss it, maybe there was something to it, is what I'm saying. So should we end it there? Because it's been an hour and 40 minutes now, and I know that we're trying this new Riverside thing. Are you there?
Just we were almost done. Just one more.
All right.
Life.
Yep.
So it's interesting. You're at this point of your life when you're thinking about, well, we might start a family. It's a whole other life. It's a whole other. You'll hardly recognize yourself. you and your partner will be saying, what did we do? What did we do all day? Now we're not at Peppa Pig World or wherever you find yourselves.
All right, that's it. That's the end of that sound clip, I think.
Okay. Well,
27 to...
yeah,
Well,
29 to-
yeah, 33:25.
Yeah, we're done. That.
It's really-
39.
Yeah, that. Oh, do you want me to jump? Okay,
Yep.
39:12. Jesus. This better be good, whoever sent this to us. I better have my mind blown by this. This is kind of a long clip, too.
So many
Here we go.
entrepreneurs are old hippies. I think of Steve Jobs. He was an old hippie.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's interesting. I think that thing of like, what does business teach people? Like we're talking about like young men and kind of there's a bit of a crisis going on out there with young men. And listen, young women are not having an easy time either. But it's that thing of like the suicide rate, whatever, is horrific with young men. And you go, well, what's going on? And it's agency. I don't think we're giving young people enough agency, so they don't feel like they have control.
Well, go ahead.
Maybe we could stop telling young men that they're oppressive and making them take responsibility for violence against women when they also experience violence from women. Like, we don't give them enough agency. Okay, well, let's see where he goes with this.
All right.
And really, I think the thing of like serial entrepreneurs, like no one ever seems to hit on their first company. But it's the second and third and fourth, but they just keep going. They go, well, I'm never going to work for anyone. I'm going to do it myself. That's kind of, I don't think we're teaching enough of that. It's a weird thing because like teaching someone to be a self-starter is kind of a contradiction in terms. But it kind of works, right? I think we're teaching the wrong things. I've got a theory. I think I'm going to start teaching
we gotta
comedy.
stop here for the banana.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not teaching independence. Why would we be? Like, consider how our financial system is set up, and how destructive the certain thing that happened like 4 years ago was to.
There's no incentive from the top to do that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, but like, again, like men want to be independent, but what do they model that after? It's like we keep coming back to the same thing. And also, what's the point? Like, why would men build anything if it's not going to attract a mate?
Well, why would you build anything in a system that is hell bent on destroying itself?
Yeah.
But let's
All right.
yeah, we can get this done.
Okay, so comedy's very new. It really, you could trace its roots back to George Carlin and Richard Pryor in the early 70s as like one guy on stage in a big theater and he's selling tickets and people are just seeing him, right? So you can trace it back to the dawn of time, but really the modern stand-up, early 70s is a good starting point, right? So
All right, just pausing for the banana. Also, George Carlin is really overrated. Not that funny. Kind of like the original Redditor, honestly. George Carlin was the original Redditor. But yeah, I like
it's very new media.
I like Richard Pryor.
Music and film, right? It's very new. So I sort of view George Carlin and Richard Pryor as they're John the Baptist, right? And Jesus isn't here yet. And it's this new evolving medium. And unlike music, we don't have a language yet. So we need a language of like, okay, what are the joke types and how do you write that down? How do you configure it? There's too much magical thinking around stand-up comedy.
Okay.
He's talking about his craft now, but
I wish.
here's the thing though, like
this.
Yeah, like the problem is that in order to be a successful comedian, Jimmy, you have to be free to say whatever you want. And we don't live in that world. We live in a world that is essentially policed by women and women's sensibilities.
Well, it's always been
no,
that way. Honestly,
I know, but it is, but at least there was some release in the past, and I think that is all but completely choked out. Now, of course, what I would teach men is the courage to say, I don't care, and I'm just going to say what I want to anyway, because really, if you just say what you feel and you don't care, they might try to cancel you, but you don't have to be. I think that you can still persevere, and I've seen it, and I think more and more people are doing it. They're realizing that
ideology is corrupted a lot, and there's no point in
yes, and you're gonna find support. I mean, you can build your own thing. There's never been a better
They're realizing-
time to do that.
They're realizing that, and here's the thing that I would say. You either oppose the ideology at its source, which is men oppress women, which justifies everything that falls out of that. Like, men oppress women, and then all of the other stuff that goes on that sort of gets tacked on with that. You either refuse it at its root, or you live with the eventual corruption of everything you love.
Mm-hmm.
You say, "Begone, Satan," at the door, or you invite him in for tea, and eventually he's shoving his balls in your face and drinking out of your toilet. Whatever Satan does. Okay, we're so close. We're so close.
The idea that I just came up with it. It's just but actually learning how jokes work and systematizing and analyzing them, I think really helps. So I've been working on a book with Amanda Baker, who helped me on my first book.
This is definitely going into a different direction, I think.
Well, this is the time code we got, so
okay.
I'm just going to play it through.
Thing together for the last couple of years, trying to teach comedy, and I think there's a real benefit to it, because if you think about music in schools, right, we'd all argue learning music's great, right? It's a great idea. Teach a kid the piano, grade 3. They learn something about music and they'll appreciate music much more in life. I think comedy's much more relevant, right? What does comedy teach you, right? Okay. It teaches you.
Well, I guess it teaches you timing and wit, which is
how to surprise people with your words. I mean, I think that learning comedy is good for attracting women if they have a sense of humor. It also is good for rooting out the bad eggs too, because if a woman can't take a joke, well, get the fuck out of there.
All right, we are.
So there is that.
We're home stretch, friends.
All right, this is the last clip.
You learn to you find yourself and you find your voice, and you learn to communicate your ideas and to order them and write them down and to communicate. It's very valuable. Like the great tragedy of life is most people live and die and never hear their own voice.
Is that a tragedy? I don't particularly like my own voice, but okay. I could have lived my whole life without hearing my own voice.
I don't think anyone likes the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about that. There are people who definitely like the sound of their own voice.
There are,
but I'm not one of them.
No, I'm right there with you. All right, well, that was definitely an interesting turn. I'm sure that this is worth. I think he has a good point. Let's make it positive. Because you agreed. You said that comedy is probably a good thing for young men to learn, because it does.
Well, it's a good way to cope with suffering.
It's a good way to.
It's a good way to make friends, and it's a good way to root out bad women
who have no sense of humor.
Yeah. Yes, which is most of them. Take my wife, please. No, don't. I love my wife.
Oh man, yeah, but to end it on a positive note. I mean, yes, that is sort of a sometimes I think we get into a really kind of depressing spiral with recognizing that men are not the problem, but then you get into this situation where there's so much stuff that you can't really do anything about except say, hey, this is not fair, right? And so it's nice to just have something where this could be something you could pursue. It could enhance your attractiveness to women if that's what you want to do. Not necessary, that's not your only worth, but if it's something that you're interested in, plus you become funny, you learn timing, so there you go. It's something you could do. I think that saying to young men that something like, oh well, you don't have a relationship because you're not funny, is not helpful, but pursuing excellence is always a good thing. So there's a positive note there.
There you go.
He's right about the comedy thing. Of course, we should defer to Dr. Randomer Cam on how to teach comedy. Although he might say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm just funny."
Yeah, I think he has a funny bone, and that's it. But
bone.
He's got it. Well, he's made videos on comedy in the past, but I mean, we've talked about on the show. Essentially, in order to be funny, you have to have some experience with loss and tragedy, because you use that so that you can make light of things. Like when I got cancer, of the testicle, and I got the ball removed. I was making jokes about it all the time because, I hated that it happened, but I was like, well, if I don't make light of this, like it's just gonna
It'll
like
control you.
Yeah, it'll control me. So you just make fun of it. So
Yeah.
half the man I used to be. Anyway, so
All right.
and that's and that's honestly why women are not funny, because they don't have as much tragedy in their life.
They don't. They use tragedy to control others rather than.
Yeah, but they don't. But their tragedy
or
isn't even like they're not. They
controlled
don't.
by it.
They haven't coped well enough with it. So there are some, like early Eliza Schlesinger is great because she uses her own femaleness to make fun of women. And so she jokes about women's behavior and uses her own experience as the example. And it's great, like when I'm freezing hot, like that was her thing, like, but, and that was what she was good at. It was really funny. And there was another woman I saw on Twitter not long ago that did it was like a little short clip where she was like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to find it and like play it. I don't know if I can do that. Do you want to end on that, or should we just end it here?
Like I could probably find it because I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where she was like, we have it really hard, right, guys? Like I shared it on my Twitter.
I got it.
You got it?
I mean, it'll take me a moment, but I'm pretty sure I can.
Yeah, Leonarda Joni is her name.
I got to get through all of the.
Yeah, I tagged you in it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I tagged you in it.
So
We'll go get it.
Yeah,
and then
I'm going to go get it.
Should I stop the recording anyways here, and then like?
No, we'll stop at the end. We'll stop at the end after we finish this. Although I'm not sure if this. Oh gosh. This is really, I'm in this long argument with this feminist who's arguing that a cartoon depiction of a woman choking a man doesn't depict violence.
Okay. Oh, I know that. Yeah. Just send me this thing.
This extended, stupid argument. I'm like, no, this is violence.
Yeah.
It's just violence that you're okay with. And so I have to scroll through that. And I found it, friends. So it's going to be shortly. There we go. I got the link. I am sending.
Never go full retard.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
all right. Here we go.
Argue that a cartoon depiction of violence isn't a depiction of violence, but apparently that works for feminists. So.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna pause it. We'll end it on this because I think this is hilarious. So let me share this tab instead, and I'm gonna put it on the screen for you guys. This is comedian Leonarda Joni. Expand. What do you mean expand?
Expand the video.
It. No, I can't do that.
It's got
no
arrows. You can't?
Allison, if I do that, it will fill my monitor, and then it'll look really awkward.
Okay.
In the OBS. You see what I mean?
Okay.
I'm playing it.
Stop being a woman in general, right, ladies? I'm just kidding. It's easy. Shut up, bitch. We have everything we've ever wanted, and we're still not happy. I think we're the problem.
It's funny because it's true. It's like,
yes. I like how she just like hooked him in. She was like, oh, it's so hard. And all the women were like, yeah, like they wanted to applaud that. And she immediately shut it down.
But, it's got a grain of truth. Like never have women gotten their way more than in this society. And never have they complained more than in this society.
Mm-hmm.
So, grain of truth. Okay.
All right.
I just want
so let's let any thank yous to do, and then we'll.
Oh yes, I will look and see if there's any thank yous. I know.
All right.
G put through something last night, but I'm pretty sure maybe. Oh, you know what? Hannah wouldn't have been able to thank her because she doesn't have access to the back door that I do.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna give a big thank you to Meredith G. For last night, she put in $100 to the back.
Ooh, yep. I'm gonna give her this one. Oh, yeah.
I'm really rich.
All right, thank you. That's what they tell me.
Okay, so if you would like to make sure we can continue to do this content, and it is definitely up to like you and all of others, our supporters. You're the ones we're the reason why we've been on the air for 10 years, 10 plus years. Almost daily, and we keep trucking, and we're going to keep trucking. We're going to keep bringing the message of not believing that men oppress women, because that message strips men of compassion and care, and it also strips women of agency. Like it essentially says that women are just passive recipients of men's actions. It's both misogyny and misandry, and it's dumb. So we should get rid of it, and we'll all be happier. It'll be a utopia. No, probably not. We'll just have new problems.
No. But we'll be able to. But the thing is, we'll be able to confront any difficulties a lot easier if we're working together.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it won't be a utopia, but it'll be a lot easier.
But going up against that narrative, you know, it's not easy. You know, it's not a lot of people want to hear it, and there's a lot of big interests that don't want to let it be heard. So it's definitely thanks to you guys that we have been able to continue to do it. And if you want to join our very generous supporters, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support, where you can help us out one time. You can also just send us a message. Tell us we're not screaming into the void. Tell us that you appreciate the message that men should have compassion. You can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message and a tip. And if you'd like to subscribe and spend more time with us in the after shows, the patron shows, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/subscribe. So those are the ways you can help us out. All of it is very much appreciated, particularly the subscriptions, because then we get to see your wonderful self and talk to you. And back to you, Brian.
All right. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame despite all of our issues. And we will talk to you all in the next one.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.